Hello, can you hear us?
With earphone I can hear.
Okay, okay, it was connected, that's why your voice was coming to us. And
Yeah,
okay, now,
now I can hear with the earphone.
okay, okay. So now we are going to start here. So, good morning, everyone who are joining this session from India and the neighboring countries. And also, good afternoon, Maharaj, for joining this session from Melbourne. We all have entered into a new year 2022, and today we are going to celebrate Kalpataru Utsav. So first of all, we will be garlanding Thakur with his pranam mantra. ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतार वरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। ॐ निरञ्जनं नित्यमनन्तरूपं भक्तनुकम्पधृतविग्रहं वै ईशावतारं परमेशमिट्टं तं रामकृष्णं शिरसा नमामि। Now, about this Kalpataru day, our students made a small video presentation that would be shared now.
When the world celebrates New Year by lighting lights, arranging parties, bursting crackers, and shouting out the countdown, Ramakrishna Mission organizes Kalpatru Day. Kalpatru Day celebrations preach the teachings of the great Guru, Sri Ramakrishna.
One of the most eventful days in the life of Sri Ramakrishna Paramhansa, also called Thakur, and his followers is Kalpataru Day, the first day of English calendar, that is 1st January, the first Kalpataru Day. January 1, 1886 was an event of unusual consequence and meaning in the life of Sri Ramakrishna and his followers. Ramakrishna was suffering from throat cancer at that time and his health was declining. He and his closest follower had moved to a garden house or farmhouse in the northern Calcutta neighborhood of Kasipur. January 1 was a relatively good day for him and he took a walk in the garden. There he asked one of his followers, Girish, a question that he often asked before. Who do you say that I am? Girish responded that he believed that Ramakrishna was God incarnate, come to earth out of mercy for humankind. Ramakrishna replied, what more shall I say? May you be awakened. Ramakrishna then entered an ecstatic state and began touching all of his followers. Those he touched reported experiencing a variety of new states of consciousness, including vivid visions. For one Vaikuntha, the visions persisted and interfered with daily life, so that he feared that he might be going insane.
One disciple, Ramachandra Datta, explained that Ramakrishna had in effect become Kalpataru, also called Kalpavriksha, the wish-fulfilling tree of Sanskrit literature and Hindu mythology.
Kalpatru Day, also called Kalpatru Divas or Kalpatru Utsav, is an annual religious festival observed by the monks of the Ramakrishna Mutt monastic order of Hinduism and lay followers of the associated Ramakrishna Mission, as well as the worldwide Vedanta societies. These organizations follow the teachings of Ramakrishna, the 19th century Indian mystic and figure in the Hindu Renaissance.
The event commemorates the day on January 1, 1886, when his followers believed that Ramakrishna revealed himself to be an avatar, or God incarnate on earth. It is held each January 1. Although the observances are held in many locations, the most significant celebrations takes place at Kasipur Garden House, farmhouse, or Udyanvati in Bengali near Kolkata, then called Calcutta. Present Ramakrishna March, a branch of Ramakrishna Order, the place where Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa Thakur spent last days of his life. It is classified as one of the Lord's special festivals by followers of Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa Thakur.
That was an amazing presentation made by our students. Now we are going to the main part of today's program. We are delighted to have Swami Sunisthananda as our guest of today's program. Before inviting him to deliver his lecture, I would like to introduce him briefly. Swami Sunisthananda is the Vice President and Resident Monk in charge of Vedanta Center of Melbourne since October 2017. He is a monk of the Ramakrishna Order. He joined the order in 1991. He served as principal of various higher secondary schools run by Ramakrishna Mission in India and was posted to Fiji as the manager of Swami Vivekananda College, Nandi in 2012. He was posted to Vedanta Center of Sydney as its Associate Minister of Religion in 2013 and continued there till he was posted to Vedanta Center of Melbourne in October 2017 as its vice president and resident monk in charge. Apart from conducting weekly spiritual discourses and online classes, he is an active participant in seminars, workshops, and interfaith events. Now, I would request Maharaj to kindly start. Hand over to you, Maharaj. Thank you.
So, thank you, Abhigyan, and thanks to Vivekananda Youth Circle, IIEST Shibpur. I am audible, I think. Yeah.
Yes, Maharaj, you are audible.
Okay. So thank you all to the Vivekananda Youth Circle IIEST Shibpur for again inviting me to just speak on Sri Ramakrishna's teachings on the special occasion of the Kalpataru Divas, the Kalpataru Day, which in Ramakrishna Mission we celebrate every year on the 1st of January, as it has been indicated just now in that wonderful video presentation, that it was in 1st January 1886, Sri Ramakrishna, as has been narrated by the devotees, that he became Kalpataru, the wish-fulfilling tree. So the idea is that whatever you desire and you ask, that will be delivered. But it's a very popular notion, but the real idea is we will find that Sri Ramakrishna is indicating something very, very significant. What he blessed all was not that let your desires be fulfilled. What he blessed all was by saying, Tomader Choitanyo hok, be illumined. And yes, after saying that, whomever he touched, as most of them were the spiritual aspirants, we find that whatever deity they had the vision of the chosen deity, which for for which they were trying hard for such a long time. It never materialized. But that day, Ramakrishna became specially graceful, and by his touch, all were, as if realizing the chosen deity in the way they wanted. And not only that, there were some of them were there who wanted wealth. And that also we find was materialized. In his later life, we find he was a wealthy person. So what actually it means that by his saying, Tomade Chaitanya Hok, and the devotees are interpreting it as that our desires are fulfilled, then this too how to collaborate. So actually what Sri Ramakrishna said, Tomade Chaitanya Hok, be illumined. To understand that, we would refer to Sri Ramakrishna's way of interpreting the word Manush. In Bengali, human being is called Manush. And Ramakrishna had his own unique way to interpret the word Manush by saying that Manush is the conjoint of two syllables. What is Man and another is Hush. Man plus Hush is Manush. Now, as per the grammar is concerned, it's not the correct way. But Sri Ramakrishna, in his unique way, is breaking the word, which doesn't follow grammar, but it has a significant meaning. What is the meaning of this Man plus Hush is Manush? That's very interesting. That what he's saying is very interesting. That in Indian language, you will find the word Man means value. Whether it's Hindi or Bengali or even in Sanskrit, Mana means value. That what is the value of such and such thing? That's what inka maan kya hai? Maan ki. The calibration, the value is spoken of as man. So as a human being, we all have certain specific, unique characteristics which no other creature have. No other creature have. It's only as human being we have certain unique, this mana, some unique values, some uniqueness. The hush in Hindi means hosh, means awareness. That as a human being, we have certain uniqueness, certain values which no one else have. Am I aware of it? If I am aware of it, then only I am Manush. But a very nice interpretation Sri Ramakrishna is giving of the word Manush. Man plus Hush. Man means values, Hush means Hosh or awareness. So Manush means the one who is aware of the unique characteristics which belongs to him, which doesn't attributes any other creature. So once you are aware of that, then only there is a chance that you recognize your core values, and based on those core values, you try to manifest them. They are hidden potentially. They are as a potentially, they are hidden within you. Now, once we become aware of those positive traits, of those unique traits, then only the question of manifesting them comes. So once you're aware of all those unique values, once you're aware, then only you try to manifest them. So now today, the topic which we have chosen is the educational philosophy based on Sri Ramakrishna's teachings. So today, I will try to highlight that all those specific human characteristics which no other creature has, those as the man, which Sri Ramakrishna is saying that we should have hush, we should have hosh, we should have awareness of, if we have to have fulfillment as a human being in this life. So let us try to find out what all mana he is speaking of. Very interesting that all the creature do have impulses. That impulse to certain extent result in particular type of emotions. In the advanced creature, in the vertebrates, we do find there are certain emotions displayed. Even by your pet dog, you will find they do exhibit a particular type of emotion. So, emotion or the impulses is common to all the creatures. But as a human being, what's the man? What's the uniqueness? We as a human being have the capacity to guide our emotions by our willpower. No other creature can do that. That my emotions are, of course, there, but I am not forced to behave as per my emotions. I do have a faculty of willpower, of discrimination, by which I can guide my emotions. And this is the faculty which is unique to human being. No other creature can do that. And as long as we are trying to manifest that, we are human beings. Otherwise, we can be categorized just like any other animals. To give a common example, in our life, you will find that in any profession, a doctor, before entering into the profession, has some oath. He has to take some oath. In the marriage ceremony, you will find there is some oath. The minister, before taking the responsibility as a minister, has some oath. The players, the Olympic players, all the in the football match, you will find in the cricket match, the players stand together with the oath that the game will be fair game. So what is actually speaking of? That they all have their particular passion, that I have to win the match. But yes, I am guiding that passion with the will, that it has to be done as a fair play. As a minister, if I have to really rule over the country, that is my passion, but I have to do it in such a way that it doesn't entail in exploitation. It helps, it finds expression as service. So what is there? My emotions, my passions are guided by my will. And that's why we find in our every sphere of life, we do take oath. And that oath is always taken in front of all, because if you take an oath privately, no one knows. To substantiate that, yes, what oath I have taken, I stand by it. For that, there should be witness. So you will find in all our activities, wherever the oath taking is there, there are witness. It is in presence of others. What it speaks of, that we have the power to guide our emotions with our willpower, which no other creature can do. That is a special man. And as long as we are doing it, know it for certain, our education is going to fructify. It is going to be beneficial to the human society. It's not just going to be for my selfish ends. So that's why you will find Sri Ramakrishna used to say, what's in the words of Sri Ramakrishna? Striving to unite one's mind with one's speech is real education. That what I say, I really mean it. I walk my talk. In the present day language, they say that you need that integrity of that personality. Otherwise, the academic education, as has been criticized by Ramakrishna, in a very, very strong language, what he used to say, vultures soar very high, but their gaze is fixed in the charnel pit, where the rotten flesh is there. It is flying very high in the sky, but its entire gaze is down below in the charnel pit, where all the rotten flesh is there. So sometimes with all our qualifications, with all our degrees, we fly high. We are having the position in society, but our ends, the real goal is extremely selfish. And that way we find that very quickly, what you say, that you will get a job for your hard skills. You will be appointed for your hard skills, but you will be fired. You will be hired for your hard skills, but you will be fired for your lack of soft skills. So what it speaks of, that though I have the so-called academic education, but I have not as such used the education to internalize the values. I use my position to exploit other, and in very quickly, I lose the accountability and I lose the faith And then I find I myself have in no way have served the society, and I myself have to face the dire consequences for it. So to walk the talk is very important. Contribution to the society, which speaks of guiding our emotions with our will in every sphere, whether it is our family life or whether it is a community life. Everywhere we will find at each and every step, we have to develop that faculty of guiding our emotions with willpower. Like other animals, we cannot be just merely guided by our instinct, by our impulses. We have to develop that power. As long as we can do that, we are having the awareness of this particular mana. What's this mana? Guiding our emotions with willpower. And that speaks of the building up of our life in such a way that it becomes the cause of Atmana Moksha, your own liberation, your own emancipation, and at the same time, Jagat. First thing which I would like to indicate, highlight as the mana, that the faculty of guiding the emotions with the willpower. The second thing, the next thing we will find that as a human being, we have an urge to learn. It's not that just as long as we are in some professional course, in some educational institution, that we are pursuing our studies. You all know, you have already got those, especially you who are all in the professional course, you are all in the engineering course, the technological course. You know that now the upgradation of your knowledge when you are in job is a very important factor. You have to have that inquisitiveness to learn more and more. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, as long as I live, so long do I learn. So this, what you say, this faculty of this urge to learn constantly, to upgrade yourself constantly, is something which is again another important human faculty. We shouldn't curb it. It shouldn't be such that we should have an idea that with my college education, my education stops. After that, I enjoy my life in my job. Once I enter the job, it's only enjoyment. No, this learning process has to go on and on. As Sri Ramakrishna used to tell a very interesting story, the story of an woodcutter. And poor woodcutter every day used to cut some wood in the forest. He was very poor. One day a brahmachari was passing that way. He told, why don't you just go a bit inside, deep into the forest? Outside you just get the fire, this firewood. You just go deep into the forest. You may get treasures. And this woodcutter thinks, why not I listen to the brahmachari? He goes deep in within the forest, and he finds there are a lot of sandalwood trees. By selling the sandalwood, he became rich. And then again he thought, the brahmachari never told me just to go up to the sandalwood trees. He told me, go forward. So he started proceeding still deep into the forest. Then he found the silver mine, gold mine, and then he found the diamonds, and he became richer, more and more rich. So what's the idea? Go forward. Your education should urge you, should impel you to move on, never to be satisfied. Each and every success in life should be considered as just a milestone. That's not the final goal. And that urge for learning should go on. And that's again a human faculty of which we should be aware of and we should never forget. Next, another very important human faculty which Sri Ramakrishna is indicating, that education is realization. And he's giving a very nice example. He's saying, can you explain the taste of clarified butter, of ghee, unless you have tasted it? It's a very simple word, but just see how poignant it is, that we cannot explain the taste of ghee. We can never understand the taste of ghee unless we have tasted. However, the other may explain. It's impossible. Why to speak of ghee? Anything, suppose mango, I have not tasted. Can I understand the taste of mango if one goes on explaining me? It's impossible. All knowledge is actually realization. But at the same time, we find that we think that book learning is education. That why this wrong type of idea developed. Why this wrong idea developed that book learning is education? It's even being very jokingly in one American journal, it has been mentioned that what's our exact learning is our education is as if very nicely it has been defined what it is, that it's a mysterious process. It's a mysterious process in which the notes enter from the notebook of the teacher to the notebook of the student without entering the head of either. That's how they joke. They just make a fun of the education system through which we go through. So all these books are not for rote learning. It is actually the language is an interesting thing. What's the interesting thing about the language? In the language is coded is encoded the information. All the information is encoded in the language. And we can decode it only when we have realized it. Just see, when I say mango, the one who have tasted, he only can decode the word mango. Otherwise, the word mango is an encryption, is an encoded message. No one can decode it unless one have tasted it. When I say the mango is sweet, only one who has tasted it knows what the real meaning is. Otherwise, the language remains encrypted. Only those who have realized, who have tested, they alone can know that the real taste of the mango. So that's why Sri Ramakrishna is saying that unless there is realization, there cannot be any education. As a human being, again, this faculty is there with the help of language. The language is there as a pointer, as an index, following which we have to go to the realization. And then only the real learning is possible. That's why in the words of Sri Ramakrishna, better than reading is hearing, and better than hearing is seeing. When you see, then all doubts disappear. So in the simple words, that knowledge is realization. This is the thing that throughout our life as a human being, we have to go through this various process of realization. The knowledge can be comprehended only when you realize. That's why it's the engineering knowledge cannot be theoretical. It has to be based on the practical. You have to go to the laboratory. You have to do the projects. They're so important. Without them, the knowledge can never go to the state of realization. So the next faculty is very important, which you may not feel immediately, but when as an engineer, you are all in the work field, it's one of the very, very important faculty which we as a human being have, which no other creature have. That is decision making. That in a particular situation of life, that the decision which we are going to take, means in Sanskrit they say very nicely, kartum, akartum, anyatha kartum. That sometimes, most of the time in life, we find we are in the crossroads. Whether to do a thing in a particular way or to do it in some other way or not to do at all. Kartum, akartum, anyatha kartum. That speaks of our faculty of taking decision. That we as a human being are the only responsible beings. The word responsibility is a very interesting word. Response plus ability is responsibility. That in a particular situation, how I respond, that's based on my decision. No other creature has that faculty. They are driven by their impulse. We can decide whether to act in a particular way or not, or to act in some other way. So this decision making is something which has to be value oriented. We have to take the decision in such a way which speaks of the welfare of all. But at the same time, it should be practical. It should be pragmatic. At the same time, it should be value oriented. And we find there's a wonderful story in the life of Ramakrishna. I mean, the Gospel of Ramakrishna is the story of Mahut Narayan. Many of you have heard of it. It's a very interesting story that in a hermitage, the Guru have instructed all his disciples that Narayana is in each and every being. The Lord is in each and every being. So, seeing the Lord in each and every being, develop a sense of reverence, respect for all. And now these students one day went for cutting the wood in the forest, in the jungle. And suddenly they heard someone shouting that the elephant has gone mad. Please be off the way. Please run off. Don't be standing here in the, on the way of the elephant. Please run. Please flee. All the students were fleeing. All the students were fleeing. One of them suddenly recollected. What is the recollection? That my Guru has told me that Narayan is there in each and every being. Narayan is there in each and every being. So, I have to revere them. Just 1 minute. Online, please. Sorry for the interruption. That this disciple thought that Guru has taught me that I seeing the Lord in each and every being, seeing the Narayan in each and every being, I am there to supposed to show reverence. So, though in the mad elephant also the Narayan is there. So why should I run away? Let me stand here with a reverential attitude, with my hands folded, to show respect to that mad elephant. Now, in no time, the mad elephant came running, approached that student who was standing there. The Mahut sitting on the top of the elephant was shouting, "Run away." He didn't hear him. He was standing there to show respect to that mad elephant. But in no time, the mad elephant came and took this student on his trunk and just raised him up and threw him at a distance. He was badly injured. He was unconscious. But luckily, he didn't die. He was lying there unconscious. The elephant went away, and these other students came back running. Finding the student unconscious, they took him. They all took him back to the hermitage. And now the Guru asked just to sprinkle water on his face. When water was sprinkled, he regained his consciousness. And now the Guru asked him, "What happened to you?" The Mahut was constantly shouting, "Run away. Why didn't you run?" And then he told, "Guru, you only have taught me that there is Narayan in each and every being. So just to show reverence to the Hathi Narayan, this mad elephant, which is finding the Narayan who is manifesting me as the mad elephant, to show respect to that mad elephant, who is also the manifestation of Narayana. I was standing there with folded hands." And then Guru, very interestingly, very nicely, is replying that yes, Narayan is in all. I have asked you to show reverence to the Narayan manifested in each and every being. But why didn't you show respect to the Mahut Narayan, who was shouting at the top of his voice, "Run away"? So this is the story which speaks of risk management. When you are all in the technological institute, you know, in your job, whenever you will be in your profession, risk management is a thing which has to be very effective. Whenever we find that the news is there, the bridge has fallen. Here in the Western country, we find that the Indian devotees come and they say, "Maharaj, so much ridicule we have to face." They say that it's you who seem to be such big engineers, what happened to your country? Why these bridges are all collapsing? They're ridicule. So this speaks of that the lack of proper risk management. Why? That we most probably, when we are supposed to take certain decision, we lose the faculty. We don't take the decision properly. And then we find that though we may have some future goal, some high goal, but because of our lack of a proper vision, proper risk management, we find that we again and again we meet disaster. Just like the brahmachari, he made disaster. We meet disaster. But now the question is, why it's that? What's the factor which enables us to make effective decision, to make some effective decision? The decision making is of course a human faculty. No other creatures have to take any decision. That is another man which Sri Ramakrishna is speaking of. We do take that decision. But why we fail to take the proper decision? It's a very simple reason. The reason is we are biased. We have an obsessive bias, and that bias is most of the time is towards the excessive profit, and that is driven by greed. Our greed for excessive profit from our excessive selfish interest makes us so biased that we fail to take the proper decision at proper time. And that's the result. That's the cause for all the corruptions. All, in spite of all our education or our learning, we find we meet some disaster which was not supposed to be. So how the decision we fail? That greed results in bias in our learning. We cannot have an unbiased learning. This again Sri Ramakrishna speaks of with a wonderful story, that how we get biased, and once we get biased, how we cannot act in proper way, how our knowledge gets distorted, how our actions gets what you say that is not proper. So the story of two weaver friends, Sri Ramakrishna's wonderful story. The two weavers, they were friends, but for long they haven't met each other. So one weaver, let me say that the guest went to meet the other weaver, the host. So the host, when he opened the door, saw the guest weaver, his friend there, her friend there, was so elated, happy, that after a long time I'm seeing my friend. They haven't met for a long time. So she invites the friend to come in. And now as the host is also a weaver, she was actually weaving with a lot of cotton balls. Various colored cotton balls were there. And the guest weaver noticed that there are so many cotton balls. The host said, "You came after such a long time. Why not have some refreshment? You please sit. Let me go in and bring some refreshment for you." So when he went for getting the refreshment, the guest, the one who came to meet his friend, was lured by one of those cotton balls. They're so colorful cotton balls. One of the cotton balls he was lured, he had agreed to have it. Now, in the absence of the host, what she did, she took one of the ball which she lured her, she took it and hid it under the armpit and was sitting there quietly. The host came with the refreshment, offered it to the guest. The guest weaver, when was having his refreshment, the host weaver, she noticed that one of the cotton ball is missing. And she was a bit surprised. How come it's missing? And in no time, she realized that where it is, the way the guest was sitting with the armpit tightly closed, she understood she has hidden it under her armpits. Now, how to get it? She cannot charge her directly. So how to get back that cotton ball? So now she devised a nice plan. After the refreshment was over, the host said, "See, I am so elated today. You came after such a long time. I uh, am so elated. I feel like dancing. Why not we both dance just to enjoy this occasion, just to celebrate this occasion? Let us dance together." Now, the guest was really perplexed that how can he dance with a cotton ball under the arm? But as the host has requested, she has to comply. She also got up. Now, the host was dancing with both the hands upraised, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, with both hands upraised. She was dancing, but the guest cannot do that. With one armpit tightly pressed, and she was just dancing with one arm upraised. Now, the host understood that this way I cannot get the cotton ball. And she then immediately told, "See how nicely, how freely I am dancing. Why not you dance like me?" And the guest replied, "Well, I cannot dance that way. I do not know. I do not know to dance as freely as you." So this is a very funny story which Sri Ramakrishna used to relate. In our life, with all our education, with all our philosophies, with all our isms, sometimes we find we cannot dance properly because our greed has made us to keep something under our armpit, and we got biased. We somehow try to philosophize as per our bias, and those biases makes us conscious liars. These are the terms, very sharp, poignant terms. Swamiji used to use this term, Swami Vivekananda, that we are conscious liars. Jnana papi, conscious liars. And why we become conscious liars? Because the same thing, first of the greed that doesn't allow us to understand so many things which is clearly visible. Why the bridge has fallen, we all know. But the one who were responsible for it, you will find even after the bridge has fallen, so we don't know. It was all done properly. Why they fail to understand that there was some mistake? How their bias makes them fail to understand. So there's another very interesting story of Ramakrishna, which is not in the gospel, but which we find in one of the letters of Swami Turiyananda, a direct disciple of Ramakrishna. What that story is? Very interesting story. That a king declared that if someone can teach me how to make muri, rice bubbles, I will give him half of the kingdom. Now the people were excited. Many came to the palace, to the king's court, to explain how to make muri, how to make rice bubble. The king gave a very patient hearing to all. But after giving a patient hearing, he will simply nod his head to say, "No, I haven't understood." Now, the subjects thought that most probably a practical demonstration is required. Say they brought the cauldron, they brought the oven, everything in the court to give a physical demonstration. The king again saw everything patiently. But at last, again he nodded his head to say, "No, I haven't understood." After saying this, Ramakrishna very nicely is concluding that the king can never understand, because once he says that he have understood, half his kingdom is gone. So now we will understand that how our greed makes us biased, and how our bias makes us conscious liars, and how we fail to understand the simple truth which is palpably visible even by the one who is not having the so-called technical education, that there is some fraud in it. Some type of fraud is there in it, otherwise it wouldn't have happened. So now we will understand that how this unbiased learning is very important in this faculty of decision making, that important decision making which we have to have as a human being, which is possible for us. And that is only possible when our learning is unbiased. It is not biased because of our greed. And then only this learning can help us to take the proper decision at the correct moment. So now we will understand that the man which we are speaking of, which Ramakrishna is speaking of be illumined. Man hush is manush. Awareness of the man. These are the man. These are the values. Unless we have hosh, awareness of it, and act as per that awareness, we cannot uh, claim ourselves to be a human being. Though we may look like a human being, but we cannot claim to be a human being. The another faculty as a human being which we have is exchange of ideas. It's a very important thing. So very important faculty is this exchange of ideas. You may say, what's the important in it as a human being? No other creature can exchange ideas. The entire evolution happened by adding muscles, And suddenly there was a deviation in the evolution. We, instead of adding uh, cells to our muscle, we started adding neurons to our brain cells. So instead of becoming stronger, we started becoming smarter. How it helped? Just suppose there is a quicksand pit, and where suppose a chimpanzee fell and died. Never realize that it is a quicksand. If once you fall in it, you're just going to sink in it, and you will die. The chimpanzee died falling on the same that quicksand. The chimpanzee's son, the grandson, all died at different time, falling on the same quicksand. We as a human being have the faculty of exchanging our ideas. What we do, once we realize somewhere there's a quicksand, just one notice is required. One that you have to just have a notice board there. Don't proceed. There is a quicksand. So just see, by adding neurons to our brain, by becoming smarter, we took a different turn in the evolution. And that speaks of ours being in the peak, in the apex of the entire evolution. So this exchange of ideas again is another man. And that in the education system is very, very important. That education is not something like the teacher is instructing and I am just like a empty vessel in which all the informations are poured in. When I came to Australia for the first time and I visited some of the educational institutions, I was bit first at the beginning, couldn't understand the way the students are sitting. In India, always I saw that it's the teacher whom I face, the students face. Here, I saw that there are the tables in which the students are all sitting around. The teacher is instructing, but it is not that all are facing the teacher. There actually the students are facing each other. And there are all the tables have particular set of students, particular group of students, and the entire classroom is like various groups of students all facing each other, they're sitting. And then I asked that why they're not facing the teacher. The idea is these are all peer groups, that what the instruction the teacher is giving, it may not be very clear to them. Now they have to discuss among themselves. This peer group, this discussion will make the ideas more clear. So this is the idea of that exchange of this as a human being, which we can do, which alone can enter learning. There's a wonderful Sanskrit sloka that the process of education, how it happens, acharyat padam adhyet. 1/4 of our education comes from the instruction from the teacher, acharya. The next is very important. Padam shishya samed, with our own intelligence, another 1/4. That speaks of the peer group. Padam sa brahmacharibhyah, that when we are discussing with one another, then the ideas became more clear. So this exchange of ideas is something which speaks of the real education. Something which is not clear to me becomes clear when I am exchanging. There's a wonderful story in the Gospel of Ramakrishna that a Bhagavat Pandit every day used to go and instruct, used to read the Bhagavatam and explain to the king. He will read the Bhagavatam to the king and explain. And after the explanation, he will ask the king, "O king, have you understood?" And the king will simply reply, "First, you understand." And now this Bhagavat Pandit was quite humble enough. Instead of feeling hurt, for most of us, we will just feel hurt that I am explaining as he's asking, first you explain. So our ego will come into picture. But this Pandit was quite humble enough to be inquisitive, to ask himself that why the king is asking, that first you understand. And it went on for quite a few days, for months. And then at last, one day, suddenly, like a spark, the idea came to this Bhagavat Pandit that the entire Bhagavatam speaks what? That God alone is real, the world is unreal, hold on to God. And renounce the so-called the immediate pursuits of your worldly pleasures. But what I am doing, I am going and teaching Bhagavatam to the king for some remuneration. So what I am teaching itself, I have not realized. It has not actually gone deep within me so that I can lead the life as per the teachings. For some small pecuniary help, I am going to teach Bhagavatam to the king, and I'm asking whether he understood. So the moment he understood, realized that the teaching of Bhagavatam speaks of devotion to God and detachment from the worldly uh, pursuits, the Bhagavat Pandit immediately developed a tremendous renunciation. He just wrote a note, a letter to be delivered to the king. I never went to the king back again. What the note was? O king, at last I have understood. At last I have understood. So what it speaks of here, see, if the Bhagavat Pandit was very egotistical, then this never the real idea of the purport of the Bhagavatam would have flashed in his mind. It has happened because he allowed the exchange of ideas. That as the sloka, the Sanskrit Shanti mantra which we chant every day in most of our Ramakrishna Mission school at the assembly, Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahi Tejasvi Navadhitamastu Mavid Vishavahi Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. What's the idea? That may the teacher, may he, the Lord, protect both of us, the teacher as well as the student. May he nourish both of us through the process of education. When we are discussing, we both get nourished. It's not only the peer groups, even the teacher sometimes gets nourished by the questions which the students put to the teachers. If the teacher is also very open-minded, by teaching itself, he finds that his knowledge is being enriched. So this discussion, so that let this knowledge become fruitful in our life through this cooperation. That's the prayer. And that's what is being nicely indicated in the story of the king and the Bhagavat Pandit. And then, as we have indicated, this faculty of exchange of ideas, which again speaks of the human faculty. No other beings can do that. As we have already mentioned, that what we have this the mentioned is the example of the chimpanzee, that it was making the same mistake generations together. As a human being, we could come out of it only because we exchange our ideas. We have that faculty. We have developed that language. It is in modern neurology, it is called the faculty of dual representation. That sometimes we say the children do some childish thing, but to do that childish thing, you have to be evolved. Just take a common example. A small child most probably is playing at the backyard of his own home, and the father just wants to see that what the child is doing. He goes to the backyard and he finds the child is holding a stick in his hand, a branch of tree in his hand, and the father asks, "What are you doing?" The child, with this all the childish play, what he is doing, he shouts to his father, "Don't come near. I'm having a sword in my hand." Now, just this is the idea, that a branch is representing the sword. No other creature can do that. we as a human being have developed this faculty of dual representation. That this is not the sword. All our idol worship speaks of that. The idol is not the God. It's a dual representation. Through that, I am thinking something. It's an index which takes me to something which this is just a symbol. So all our language developed from that. The language is a symbol. When I say mango, the mango may not be near me, but immediately I understand what you're speaking of. This language is again a dual representation. All the mathematical notation, symbols are all dual representation. All our knowledge is a dual representation. It's a wonderful human faculty which no other creature can do. And that alone helps us to exchange the ideas. And that speaks of enrichment of our knowledge. And for this exchange of ideas, the another human faculty, another mana, which is very important, is humility. Unless I'm humble, if I have the idea that I know everything, if I get that I have that pride, then knowledge is never possible. The sufficient humility should be there to open yourself up to all sorts of ideas, all sorts of paradigms, all sorts of orientations. In Sanskrit, we say there are 6 darshana, shara darshana, and we loosely translate it as philosophy. Darshana doesn't mean philosophy. Darshana means to see. It actually speaks of perspective. How nicely the sages knew that truth, when seen from various angles, can appear to be different. A building, when you take a photo from the east, the same building, you take a photo from the west, from the north, from the south, all the pictures will be different. The same building will have different pictures. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, that 5 blind men wanted to know what elephant is like. So one went and touched the legs, and he came and described the elephant as a pillar. Someone touched its ears and told it is like a fan, billowing fan. Someone touched its stomach and told it's a cauldron. So just see that 5 blind men, just seeing from a particular perspective, the same elephant appears as different. So unless we are humble enough, it is impossible to look from others' perspective, to see it from others' perspective. And our knowledge remains incomplete. We become short-sighted. We become myopic. In the words of Ramakrishna, one cannot attain knowledge till one gets rid of pride. Water does not stay on the top of the mound, but in low land, it flows in torrents from all sides. But just simple words. When the rain is falling on the top of the mound, it never stays. But if any land is a lowland, from all sides the water will come and gather there, accumulate there. So be humble enough to access the knowledge from all perspectives. In another simple way, Ramakrishna is saying very interesting thing. It is enough to believe that everything is possible in God's creation. It's a very important thing. Before the aeroplane was discovered, no one thought that we can fly in sky. Each and every discovery brought some new revelations. So everything is possible in God's creation. Never allow the thought to cross in your mind that your ideas are only true ones and those of others are false. So that restricts our knowledge. Keep the mind open. Everything is possible in God's creation. And that should give you sufficient humility to keep yourself open to all sorts of suggestions and ideas. So, since there's so many human faculties, unless we are aware of them and cultivate them, we can never find fulfillment as a human being. And then there's the importance of time in the process of learning. This also is something very important. That we were just speaking of that sloka, that Acharyat Padamadhyet, we spoke of 3 quarters. The first quarter is from Acharyat, from the teacher you get 1/4. Padam Shishya Samedhaya, next 1/4 from your intelligence. Padam Sabrahmacharibhya, from the peer group, from discussion, another 1/4. The last 1/4 which we are yet to discuss is very important. Padam kala kramena cha. In the process of learning, you have to get seasoned up, mellowed by your learning. The experiences which you gather through the process, through your journey of life, is something which is very important in the process of learning. So here, this thing is something very important, not in our own learning, but when we are trying to impart some knowledge to others. Sometimes we become very impatient, we become fanatic. Why? That what I understand, you have to understand. That's the attitude which we have. That is so palpably clear to me. Why shouldn't you understand? From that comes all quarrel, violence, everything in life. Even if it may be so that I am correct, the other person's way of thinking is not correct, but I have to give that person time, sufficient time, to be seasoned through the experiences of life, to realize my word. As a parent, it is very important. We will find that when the young ones are growing up, the parent says something, immediately the children will start lecturing. Oh, you are all outdated. You don't know the ways of life at present. And you will find sometimes the parent, at last, when they in no way can explain the young children, they at last they say, only in time you will understand. Yes, that's a very important thing. Padam Kalakram, through the experiences of life. Sometimes we find my mother, the teenager says that my mother is a fool. The same teenager, when he or she is in his mid 40s or in the mid 30s, again start realizing the wisdom of his own mother. The one who declared him the mother as a fool, but experiences of life has taught him or her that what mother said do have some value. So the mother has to be patient. We also have to be patient in our work field, in our day-to-day life, when we are dealing with others, when we find others are not learning. Let me try to explain others what I think is right, and there it ends. I shouldn't be angry or impatient when I find people are taking their own time. Ramakrishna, in a very nice way, in a very funny way, is just trying to explain this. His words I will just read out. You may impart thousands of instructions to people, but they will not bear fruit except in proper time. And now the funny thing he's saying, on going to bed, a child said to his mother, "Mother, please wake me up when I feel the call of nature." The mother said, "Don't worry about it, my child. The call will wake you up itself." So, in time, the things which has been told by my predecessors, through the experiences of life, I am bound to learn. So that way we have to be patient in for so many things which has to be learned through experience. And as a human being, we do go on enriching our knowledge through the experiences of life. And the last thing which I will try to highlight, that as a human being, we have a faculty, man, to self-transcend. And see, with all our education, we are actually self-actualizing. First is self-actualization. That leads to self-transcendence. That what is self-actualization? That I have so many talents in me, hidden skills in me. Through my education, through my training, all those are manifesting in life. But when I grow as a responsible citizen, now all these things are not meant for my own enjoyment. It should result in self-transcendence, where I forsake my selfish ends for the welfare of others. So it's nowadays we say that the evolution, the entire process of evolution, we say that survival of the fittest. But now the theory of evolution have started changing. They have started saying the survival of the kindest, not the fittest. Those who are kind enough to think of others, they have evolved by this win-win situation, that I cooperate with you, you cooperate with me, and that way we both win. So entire evolution, you will find that in the redwood forest, the roots of the redwood never go deep into the soil. They are just on the surface. But those tall trees, how they withstand all the weather conditions. Now, the moment a young sapling starts growing of the redwood, all the elderly trees will immediately extend their roots and intertwine the root of this young sapling to form a strong base. The redwood forest base is very strong. Just this is one example. There are thousands of examples in the entire process of evolution. In the biology, they have started terming it as synergy, synchronous energy. When our energies get synchronized, we can transcend our own selfish end. But at last, we find it was an enlightened selfishness. It is an enlightened selfishness that I am as such not selfish, but I am selfish. How? But at last, it is going to help us all together. So this a very nice way Ramakrishna is speaking that all our education should at last transform our unripe ego to ripe ego. Kacha ami should become Paka ami. What is Kacha ami? To say Amar body, my house, my wealth, my property, my relative, everything my. That is Kacha. What is Paka? Everything is God's. God has given me through them to serve the entire community, to serve the entire society. Yes, I am just a trustee. I am not the owner. So that is Pakami. There's a nice story in the gospel that there are two children. The father gave two mangoes to both the child. The elder child, after getting the mango, went to his own room, closed the door, and devoured the entire mango by himself. And the younger one, he immediately went to the kitchen with a kitchen knife. He cut it into pieces and shared it with all. And he's saying the second child is the one whose army, he also has an ego, but that is ripe. Paka army. So all our education, that as a human being, we do have that faculty. We have that faculty to transcend ourselves, to relate with others through compassion, through empathy, through love. That our genes are altruistic. That's what they say. That altruism is in our nature. You will find a very interesting thing that whenever you give something unconsciously, suddenly a joy comes from within. I was in India for 12 years in various schools, Ramakrishna Mission schools. I still remember when in the duty list, we used to give the duty that on public celebration of Ramakrishna, there will be many devotees. So such and such student have to serve the khichdi. First, they all will be denying. They don't want. But we used to be very strict on that matter. You said, no, you have to volunteer. Just we will prepare that list and ask them. Very interesting. Every year we used to find once they start, just 1 hour time was allowed for them. After that, the other volunteers will come and take and they will start. They will execute the job. For them, it was just 1 hour slot, so that they develop a taste for it. Very interesting. Every year we used to find that they were not willing to do it, but once they start doing it, they are not ready to just hand it over to the next person. They get the joy. Whenever you're giving something to others, our genes are altruistic. A joy emanates from it. I was in the welfare section in Ramakrishna Mission, and one senior Swami told me, see, every day people come for some small help, pecuniary help. Some ask for some 50 rupees, 100 rupees, and just after judging the condition, we give them the money. So the senior Swami told me, ask them the reason that why they're asking. You will find that most probably not even a single person will say that I am hungry. I need food. I need clothes. I need medicine. No one says. All will say, I have a small grandchild. For him, I need medicine. For I have to buy some food for him. So the puja is coming, I have to buy some clothes for him. We forget one thing. In this life, we that we get extremely dejected when we cannot give. As long as you can give, you never realize that. There's a joy in giving. And that speaks of our altruistic genes. And that speaks of the self transcendence, which Sri Ramakrishna is speaking of, that Paka Ami. That's again is another mana which we have as a human being. So now you will find that today in the Kalpataru Day, Kalpataru Dibash, when we say that Ramakrishna blessed and all those people desires were fulfilled, it's actually not so. He told Tomadir Chaitanya Hok. By that he meant that you become aware of the mana as a manhush. And once you become aware, nothing can stop you. You are bound. The one who wants to be wealthy, you'll find a very nice thing. The one who wanted wealth, he did become rich, but his life was something wonderful, that all his wealth was for the service of others. Sri Ramakrishna realized that he has that faculty to earn wealth, but he molded his life in such a way that it was always meant for helping others. So these are the things which we find that is wonderfully expressing through all the devotees of Ramakrishna who were blessed by him. It was not simply literally fulfillment of the wishes. It was actually realizing your own potential. And once you realize that, once you recognize your potential, it is bound to materialize. It is bound to realize, it be realized. That's why Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Vivekananda used to say, education is the manifestation of perfection already in man, already in the human being. It is already there. You have to manifest it. And that entire process of manifestation is possible as long as we are aware of the various mana which we as a human being have, which no other creature have. We have those uniqueness for which we are we represent the human race. All those unique qualities that should be manifested through our life. We should be aware of them, and that should be manifested. And then only this proper education is possible, through which we can find real fulfillment in life. So now this is something interesting that we were speaking that of, that the exchange of ideas. This exchange of ideas speaks of the first-rate teacher. Whom we really revere as a teacher. Throughout your life, you will find that you had so many teachers, but you will, if you, in the long run, when you become old, suddenly you will remember those teachers who really made a difference in your life. They told something which you never forgot. That speaks of the first-rate teacher, that they instruct in such a way that it creates an indelible mark in our mind. And that way, Ramakrishna, who as such have no academic education, but he's a first-rate teacher. What he said for thousands of years, it has to stay to really make a human being out of us. And his teachings has to stay, and this Kalpataru Day will be celebrated years for years together. But we should realize what its real intention is. Its real intention is to recognize the uniqueness, the blessings which we have as a human being. The God has equipped us with some faculties. These faculties has to be realized in this life. Then only our own life will be fulfilled, and through us, the society also will attain fulfillment. And that's the idea of Atmana Mokshartham Jagat Hitayacha, your own liberation as well as the welfare of all and many. And that's what Sri Ramakrishna intends to say through Tomadir Chaitanya Hok. And that's the real message of Kalpataru Day. So there's a whole bunch of educational philosophy behind the simple words, and which we try to discuss today, just now in this small scope, through the teachings of Ramakrishna. So hope that you all like this, enjoyed this, and it will give you a scope to reflect on the ideas of the teachings of Ramakrishna, which can encompass all the field of our activities. It's not only meant for a devotee or one who is practicing spirituality exclusively. It's meant for all, for the teachers, for students, for all professions of life. That the more we realize that, the more the celebration of Kalpataru Day will become fruitful and effective. So thank you all. Namaskar.
Thank you, Maharaj, for this wonderful lecture. And if anyone has any question, he may unmute and ask directly, or also can type in the chat box. In YouTube, also, we are checking for the questions. Anyone, please. One question from Pratik Shah, YouTube, that what is Vedanta and what is the relation between Vedas and Vedanta? First question. And second question, what is Vedanta movement and Ramakrishna Bhabandolan?
Just Vedanta means the end of the Vedas. It doesn't mean literally the end of the Vedas. It means the conclusion of the Vedas. So in the Vedas, we find that this karma kanda, a lot of rituals have been enjoined there. So the Vedanta speaks of diving within. That as a human being, we first try to find out the reality without by seeing the nature. At last, the rishis realized it's not by looking out. This parak and pratyak, there are two words in Sanskrit. Pratyak means diving within. Parak means that moving out. So it's not by moving out, it's by diving within that you can find out the source of the entire existence, which is nothing but you alone. The core of your being is the only existence which is finding expression as the universe. So that's the conclusion of the Vedanta. So which what you say that is been spoken of in the Upanishads. So it's the search started by searching without, which ended up by searching within to come to that conclusion that there's only one reality which is finding expression as many. There is a very nice mantra in the Mundaka Upanishad that what is this? Tasmat parak pashyati na antaratman kaschid dhira pratyagatma naikshad avritta chakshu amritatvam ichan. That the God, the Paranchi Khani Vyatrinat Swambhu, the Lord has inflicted our senses in such a way, we always look outwards. Kaschid dhira, a few wise one, the calm one, they instead of searching without have started searching within. And when you search within, then it takes you to that realization that it's in this small scope. It's very difficult to explain that how by diving within you can come to the realization of that idea that it is the self within which is finding expression as the universe. To give a common example, that there is a white light falling on a prism. The prism is our mind. When the white light falls on the prism, it breaks into the spectrum of 7 colors. If you remove the prism, the spectrum vanishes, but where it vanishes, it merges with the white light. So this diving within speaks of calming down the mind. With the mind, if you go on searching, you will be just trying to find the reality in the spectrum, which you can never find. You have to calm down the mind. You have to remove the prism to allow the spectrum to merge with the white light to realize that alone is the source of entire existence. So that's the thing. There's the turning point which speaks of Vedanta. That when the search from without started to the search within, that's the point where we find that the Vedanta has started. It's the conclusion of the Vedas. And the Ramakrishna movement, how it is linked with this. Now, in this searching within can be done in various ways. That as a human being, we have emotion, we have that can find expression as devotion. We have the faculty of discrimination, what is real, what is unreal. We have the faculty of action, and the same action to do it in an unattached way. We can do that. This faculty of action as karma yoga, of contemplation as raja yoga, all these faculties can be used to dive within. And Ramakrishna's life was an example of that fact, that you need not be one-sided. You need not just practice a particular spiritual way. you can take the help of all these faculties. Just to give a very short idea that how this karma yoga what speaks of, that that action never binds us. What binds us is the desire behind the action. Now, if I can continue with my action without desires, then what happens? You know, let's just take the example in the summer season when the fan is revolving. No one thinks of stopping the fan by holding the blade. It will injure you. How we do it? We just off the fan. The moment you switch off, what is happening? The current gets disconnected from the fan circuit, and gradually the fan stops, isn't it? So our past action has a momentum. I cannot stop it immediately. But if I just take out the desire factor out of it, the action goes on because of its past impulse for some time to stop. And stopping of the action actually enters the stopping of the mind to take you to the realization. That's the karma yoga. Jnana yoga speaks of discrimination, that what's real, what's unreal. In this life, everything we see is a constant flow, is constant changing. Is there something which is not changing behind that? Very easily you can find out the witness that when you are dreaming, so many things you are dreaming. When you wake up, you know the dream was unreal. So your dream state negates your waking state. Your waking state negates your dream state. So all the experiences, as far the experience is concerned, they are all unreal. They're a flow, they're changing. But what is not changing? The witness, the one who is witnessing. So the more I get identified with that witness, and the more I get disidentified from all the things which are changing, that also can again take me to that realization. Bhakti, by entering into flow, when my mind is very much one-pointed, the mind then can stop. To give a common example, water flows only from when there is a difference in level. From high level to low level, the water flows. If both the levels are same, water won't flow. Electricity flows when there is a potential difference. If both ends have same potential, no electricity. Similarly, the mind is mind as long as it is jumping from thought to thought. If you can, through bhakti, through devotion, or through Raja Yoga, through concentration, if you can make the mind flow in one thought, it stops. As long as it can jump from thought to thought, the mind is mind. That's why in Yoga Sutra, the very second sutra says, Yoga's chitta vritti nirodha. To stop the vagaries of the mind is yoga. Once you stop it, you can make one thought, the mind falls off, the prism falls off, again taking you to that, merging you to that white light. So these are the various ways by which you realize the same truth. Ramakrishna Mishra, in the life of Ramakrishna, he used to say, Aghe hobi kano. Why should be one-sided? That God has given you so many faculties, use them so that you can accelerate your process. He used to give a very nice example, that in the olden days, the goldsmith, to smelt the gold, now you need a optimum temperature to smelt the gold. But in those days, there was no sophisticated furnace. So how they used to smelt the gold? The fire in which they're trying to smelt the gold, they're blowing through a pipe to enflare the fire. They're having in a hand one willow, one fan. With that also, they're trying to flare up the fire. And with the legs, there is some paddle. That paddle is again connected to another willow, another fan. That also is helping to enflare. And when with all this, with using your hands, your feet, your mouth, when you use all these your faculties, then you get the optimum temperature to smelt the gold. So Ramakrishna is saying you have so many faculties. Why you are one-sided? Use all of them to accelerate the process. And the entire Ramakrishna mission, the idea is to highlight this aspect of Vedanta. Before the advent of Ramakrishna, the Vedanta were one-sided. That what philosophy I believe, that's the only truth. Ramakrishna showed the way that if you can harmonize all of them, and you have the faculties to harmonize them, don't be one-sided, use all those faculties, then you can reach the truth in a much accelerated pace, and that way you can realize the truth in this very life itself. So that's where the Ramakrishna movement starts. It finds place in the Vedanta movement, in harmonizing, in synthesizing. And that's the thing which is very much needed in the present world. That we find there's so much fight going on in the name of religion. There, this idea of harmony, unless it is realized by all that as the saving factor. It alone can save us. By differentiation, by fighting big, are all going to die. As there's a famous quotation of Mahatma Gandhi: "For eye for an eye can never be the ultimate policy." In that way, or if you just say that I need an eye for an eye, at last the whole world will be blind. So these are the ideas which speaks of harmony, synthesis, try to understand others' perspective, and to be sincere in your own spiritual path, but at the same time to be open to others' ideas also. So that's how the same Vedanta message, by highlighting this synthesis process, the Ramakrishna movement has taken its own pace. And that's how we find that we do play a certain role in this Vedanta movement. The Ramakrishna movement has a special role to play in this Vedanta movement. So that's what we can say in short.
Thank you, Maharaj. Any other question? Short question from anyone present here? Just few seconds, we are waiting. Okay, so any other question you can ask, or now we are nearly at the end of today's session. Uh, I would like to have a song of written by Devendranath Majumdar, এসেছে নূতন মানুষ. So which also I have learned from my Ramakrishna Mission school. So it is a wonderful song to of Thakur. So here it is. Ho 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 ho. এসেছে নূতন মানুষ দেখবি যদি আয় চলে, তার বিবেক ও বৈরাগ্য ঝুলি, বিবেক ও বৈরাগ্য ঝুলি দুই কাঁধে সদা ঝুলে। এসেছে নূতন মানুষ দেখবি যদি আয় চলে, এসেছে নূতন মানুষ দেখবি যদি আয় চলে। শ্রী বদনে মামা বাণী পড়ি গঙ্গা সলিলে, বলে ব্রহ্মময়ী গেল মাদিন, ব্রহ্মময়ী গেল মাদিন দেখা তো নাহি দিলে। এসেছে নূতন মানুষ দেখবি যদি আয় চলে, এসেছে নূতন মানুষ দেখবি যদি আয় চলে। নাস্তিক অজ্ঞানী নরে সরল কথায় শিখালে, যেই কালী সেই কৃষ্ণ, যেই কালী সেই কৃষ্ণ নাম ভেদ এক মূলে। এসেছে নূতন মানুষ দেখবি যদি আয় চলে, এসেছে নূতন মানুষ দেখবি যদি আয় চলে। একোয়া ওয়াটার পানি বাড়ি নাম দেয় জলে, আল্লাহ গড ঈশা মুসা, আল্লাহ গড ঈশা মুসা কালী নাম ভেদে বলে। এসেছে নূতন মানুষ দেখবি যদি আয় চলে, এসেছে নূতন মানুষ দেখবি যদি আয় চলে। দিন ধনী মানি জ্ঞানী বিচার নাই জাতিকুলে, আপন হারা পাগল পারা, আপন হারা পাগল পারা সরলে নে হারিলে। এসেছে নূতন মানুষ দেখবি যদি আয় চলে, এসেছে নূতন মানুষ দেখবি যদি আয় চলে। দু বাহু তুলিয়ে ডাকে আয় রে তোরা আয় চলে, আয় 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 রে তোরা আয় চলে। দু বাহু তুলিয়ে ডাকে আয় রে তোরা আয় চলে। তোদের তরে কৃপা করে বসে আছি বিরলে, যতন করি পারের তরি, যতন করি পারের তরি, বেঁধেছি ভবের কুলে। এসেছে নূতন মানুষ, দেখবি যদি আয় চলে। এসেছে নূতন মানুষ, দেখবি যদি আয় চলে। তার বিবেক ও বৈরাগ্য ঝুলি, বিবেক ও বৈরাগ্য ঝুলি, দুই কাঁধে সদা ঝুলে। এসেছে নূতন মানুষ, দেখবি যদি আয় চলে। এসেছে নূতন মানুষ, দেখবি যদি আয় চলে। এসেছে নূতন মানুষ, দেখবি যদি আয় চলে। Thank you. At the last, I would request Maharaj to kindly end this session with Santi Mantra.
You're asking me?
I would request you to end this session with Santi Mantra.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. ॐ निरञ्जनं नित्यम् अनन्तरूपं भक्तानुकम्पाधृतविग्रहं वै ईशावतारं परमेशमिड्यं तं रामकृष्णं शिरसा नमाम जननीं शारदां देवीं रामकृष्णं जगद्गुरुं पादपद्मे तयो श्रुत्वा प्रणमामि मुहुर्मुहुः नमः श्रीयतिराजाय विवेकानन्दसूरये सच्चित्सुखस्वरूपाय स्वामिने तापहारिणे पूर्णमद पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरि ओम तत्सत् श्रीरामकृष्णार्पणमस्तु
Thank you everyone for joining this session from various parts of this world, and hope you all have a great year ahead. Thank you. Stay safe, everyone. Thank you, Maharaj.
হ্যাঁ
Pranam.
নমস্কার
Thank you. ভালো থাকবেন মহারাজ।